And welcome back, everybody, to the second series of the day. It is compLexity facing up against LGD Gaming. Now, LGD just finished up a very tough series against Cloud9, but managed to walk away with a 2-0. Two very tough wins, especially that first game. And LGD, I'm sure, have got to be feeling very confident going into this next series.
Yeah, compLexity also had a pretty tough series against MVP. The first game, from all accounts, was very difficult, and you have to imagine LGD has to just be... There's one of two options. They're either drained out of their minds because they just played like two 60-minute games that went down to the wire, where both teams almost threw, and then it's either that or they're just super energized. They're so hyped that they're 2-0 against a team like Cloud9, and they just carry it over and they go on.
I mean, saying from a player perspective, it does say a lot about your team, right? When you come through in the clutch, as the kids put it, when it comes to a very close game like that, 2 times in a row, that says a lot about your team and the decisions you make late game. For me, that just kind of says you're winners. You know, you do what it takes in the very end in order to make that victory strike.
Yeah, that's what having veteran leadership is in Xiao 8. You know, he won a TI last year, and so he's back in a position again where it looks like he's a contender for it once again. And the thing that's interesting to me, too, is that I think I was talking to Brax when he used to play for, you remember the LGD NA team that they had going?
Yeah, LGD International.
Yes, and he said that in some ways they overtrain. You know, they just grind game after game after game, but in some ways that can kind of kill creativity. But at the same time, I feel like that type of style is bred for these types of tournaments, like long group stages where you have to go 60-minute game after 60-minute game.
Right.
Whereas I feel like a normal team would just kind of be like beat. I feel like LGD is well prepared for this, but we should talk about compLexity. They were the team that got through the NA qualifiers. They just 2-0'd MVP Phoenix, a team that looked very good from all accounts yesterday, and I think this is the real test for them.
And from my conversations with Swindlemelons, he seemed to feel pretty confident about them facing up against LGD. Maybe not necessarily their chance to, against facing LGD, but he generally felt like LGD was not as strong as a team as other people were putting them out to be. And I actually kind of agreed, but I don't know, just seeing some of their group stage performance may change my mind so far, but we'll see what happens in this first game here. The draft's already coming out. We have a Tusk and Queen of Pain picked up by compLexity. Gyrocopter and Dazzle goes the way of LGD Gaming. Is Dazzle the new highest tier support?
I think Dazzle's really good. Pretty much every team can learn how to run him. In the first days, we actually saw Disruptor picked a lot, but it just seems like Dazzle's... It's just a good hero overall. Like there was a time period last year where it wasn't as good because people were just picking Axe so often. But now that Axe isn't really a relevant hero, the Shallow Grave is so strong, there's very little that you can do to fight through it. I think it was in the Archon versus MVP game where we especially saw how good Grave could be. Like you can keep somebody alive, a TA, she puts out even like 6 or 7 more hits that can completely turn a fight. Weave has the dual function of being offense and defense, and you can check things with it. Like, if you think a team is sneaking Roshan, you can just blind cast it in there.
Yep.
Like, there's a lot of different options for it. The Poison Touch isn't great by all means, but, like, the heal itself is pretty fantastic. And I think also I wanted to point out that Gyro hasn't lost a game yet. I'm not sure how that works.
In the group stage?
Yeah, I think so far he's like 3-0 or something like that.
Yeah, because he's definitely lost in the wild card, right?
Yeah.
So... but yeah, Gyrocopter is still very strong here, despite the fact that we've had multiple metas where Gyrocopter was a very popular hero, and he's been popular while in this current meta. I kind of actually presumed that he was gonna drop off at this TI simply because once you've had sort of an established hero for so long, I feel like the teams are just like so naturally used to being able to deal with him that they will be able to always like remember the correct playstyle and draft to be able to deal with the Gyrocopter. But he still obviously remains quite successful in this group stage so far anyway. Our second set of bans here, Techies and Bloodseeker, banned away by LGD. Viper and Dragonite taken away by compLexity. Maybe heroes through and through with the Viper and especially the DK, I would say. I like LGD's banned away. I would say those are kind of like cheesy heroes in a way, the Techies and Bloodseeker.
Yeah, it's the Tusk Techies combination that's so strong.
Yep.
Bloodseeker's just a good hero overall, and I think actually the Naga ban is targeted at Ziz, just because it's a really strong hero that he plays. Like I know him to be a Radiance like player in general, like heroes that use Radiance. Leshrac is an obvious ban, and I think also the way that LGD is picked so far, it's to work around the fact that he likes to play a lot of Phantom Lancer. Like if I had to say that there was a carry that he um, that I've seen him play often, it's the Phantom Lancer, and so I think that picking the Gyrocopter, the Dazzle, and the Earthshaker, they all have different functions to deal with that hero.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, they have countered that out pretty well, sort of preemptively. So if compLexity want to go for that pickup, LGD's like, go for it by all means. compLexity spending a lot of extra time now on their third pick. We have both their, presumably, we'll say for now, their offlaner and mid. Of course, Tusk can play the support position, but a little bit more rare. Winter Wyvern is grabbed for compLexity. Very strong hero, though there is a good amount of mixed damage here. Definitely a lot of magic damage, even from the cores now of Gyrocopter and Lina. So the Cold Embrace is not going to be that strong, but then again, Winter's Curse is always a consistent, big team fight changing ultimate.
Yeah, and I think the Lina response is, or the Lina pick is in response to both the Queen of Pain and the Winter, just because you want a hero that can do sustained magic damage, and that is Lina in a nutshell. And at the same time, she's almost always going to get her ultimate off because there's a good interaction between Dazzle and pretty much any hero that has a one big spell, right? Because you guarantee almost that that person gets it off, or you overcommit to continue to stun the person that's graved, which isn't an ideal situation either. And so I think there's a nice interaction there, and compLexity, they still have 2 picks to go. I'm pretty sure that's a Swindle Queen of Pain. I know it's one of the heroes that he says he's really comfortable with, and in response, compLexity is going to pick up the Clinks, and I think this is a good pick because if you look at it, LGD don't have the best mobility to deal with him. We saw last game in the Secret Fnatic game, they had so much mobility to deal with Clinks.
Yeah.
But I think this game will be different.
They have a bit of lockdown though that I'm a little bit scared about as a Clinks player. Like both the Earthshaker and Lina are quite threatening because of their burst damage. But you're right, they don't have that much mobility. It's just lockdown and nukes from the side of LGD that's going to be more of the threat to both the Clinks and the Queen of Pain. But I do really like the Clinks pickup specifically against the Gyrocopter because I feel like you need that kind of, especially with Gyro frequently building an early BKB and very reliant on his magic damage and getting up in the face of the enemy. With Rocket Barrage, I feel like he's a hero that's very susceptible to early physical damage. You know, and not many heroes, not many carries are going to be able to get you really strong physical damage by 25 minutes. But a Clink certainly does that, primarily thanks to Searing Arrows, but also because of his strafe. So, little ups and downs for that pickup. LGD now going to go for the Enigma ban, making sure they don't have the opportunity to have a jungler advantage over LGD. And that would be a great sort of team fight hero in a way. Like LGD are looking at amazing amount of team fight with their first 4 that could easily be upset by just one really good Winter's Curse and Black Hole. And it's actually LGD who go for the PL.
Okay, this is really interesting because we were talking about how compLexity like to pick up the hero, and there were a lot of counters on the side of LGD, but it's actually LGD that opt to pick up the Phantom Lancer, and this is a pretty interesting pick because if you look at compLexity's lineup, they don't have the best way to deal with the hero. You're going to think of a hero like Queen of Pain and erroneously believe that it's a straight-up counter, right? It's like Queen of Pain has a ton of, magic burst that hits in an area, but at a certain point, like, yes, that's true, but after that, like, once the Phantom Lancer picks up, like, 3 items, that isn't true whatsoever. Like, you actually can't do anything as, like, a Storm or a Queen of Pain or an SF at some point, where SF, or with the Phantom Lancer, just completely swarms you. I think we even saw that in, remember London Conspiracy versus EG? Like, once the PL can outplay you using his Doppelwalk, like, there's just too many options. And so compLexity, I mean, I think they were blindsided by that pick, and you have to counter it. Like, there's no way you can just allow this to happen where you let that Phantom Lancer have no opposition. And I actually think this is going to mean that LGD has to do dual lanes, maybe? Oh, no, they can actually just put the Gyrocopter mid?
Yeah. Yeah, they can definitely do that because Gyrocopter can beat the Queen of Pain with missile spamming, but I was actually thinking compLexity would run Queen of Pain offlane and give the 1 and 2 position to Clinks and Ember Spirit respectively.
They have to at this point.
Yeah.
I think this was a really interesting draft because LGD, I'm almost certain that was meant to originally be a carry gyro, but then they saw that there was no counter to Phantom Lancer, and he's such a top tier pick. If there's like no Leshrac, no Earthshaker or Ember Spirit, then you're pretty much really set in that role. But now that things have happened as they have, like things are
And not
really
only
quite
just
weird.
like within its own lineup, right? And the fact like, okay, he's not going to be countered, et cetera, et cetera. He's also very good versus the Clinks, right? Because he gives you the mobility that you were talking about.
Yes.
Like you have a whole bunch of lockdown, but not much mobility on the side of LGD. Now you've got a very mobile carry.
Yeah, for sure. And so I really like this. That they're just kind of. It's interesting because it feels like both teams, instead of having like a set strategy, they're both just adapting to what each other's doing. And I think that part is really interesting. But it looks like there is going to be a head-on collision for both teams. And actually, compLexity are sending some heroes to the top rune area, I think. But
yeah, little awkward here. compLexity running 3 into the enemy jungle, but not fully committing. Both Fly as well as Ziz are going to be backing themselves up to middle and top. So just enough to make sure that Z-Freak maybe gets in that ward, which sure enough, it is going to be blocking out the camp. They are seeming to be running an offlane. Queen of Pain, Swindle Melons is going to be playing the Ember Spirit, already being fed a little bit of extra regen and went for the poor man's shield to start with. Probably the only way he can actually deal with this middle lane matchup, right? Because Rocket Barrage is such an overwhelming amount of magic damage that it's going to be early on that Flame Guard is just not going to protect him.
yeah, it doesn't do enough to help you out in the early game. Like that's kind of the weakness of Ember, is that he doesn't have the best base damage. He doesn't have the best armor either. He's got like 1 armor. And if you think about it, all of his spells at level 1 are actually quite poor. So there's almost no response from you in the first 2 levels, right? Like you walk up, you tank a bunch of hits, and then you just hope for the best, more or less. Like you can't really trade hits with the with the Gyrocopter. So you need at least level 3 or 4 for the hero to really get strong. And so what Fly is doing right here is that he's just trying to harass him out to give Swindle the best possible start that he can, so that once he picks up that crucial level 3 where he's got 2 levels of either the Sleight of Chains or the Flame Guard, when those spells are actually good, he can finally contest.
This dual lane is trying to get aggressive, but Z-Freak is going to be in a spot of trouble here. He's going to take a lot of damage in the process. Now the Dragon Slave goes out, and he will be forced to blow his potion. But this is an interesting dual lane to be sure. Tusk and Queen of Pain have a lot of offensive capabilities, and the Tusk combination with Ice Shards and then the slow of the Shadow Strike means that they can actually get a lot of right clicks in, which is an aspect of Queen of Pain that, you know, many people don't talk about because she's so, you know, like, oh, she's a magic damage burst oriented hero, but she also does a lot of right click damage simply because that's just the nature of her hero. She's always be able to get into position and constantly pursue and harass and get right click after right click.
Yeah, definitely. And right now, LGD, their lanes are a little bit odd because it almost seems like in this lane, Xiao 8, who typically plays as a support, is actually playing the core because it's just easier for him to farm against a Queen of Pain and a Tusk. Like, if the Earthshaker gets out of position, he just dies. Like, right now, he's in a really awkward position where Moon actually has a snowball, but they don't have to go for him. And that's the thing. He's got the Orb of Venom as well, and this might actually mean they decide to go for it, but they actually back off because they see Yao with the animation in the air, and you just have to run at that point.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the best choice, right? Like, if you could just continue to harass them and force them out of lane, there's no reason to take the risk and go all in for that first blood, because you could very easily get turned around on. If you go too far with the snowball, you end up underneath tower, then there's the double Fisher stun and double Light Strike array. It's just not worth the risk, right? So you're already winning the lane. Wait for the guaranteed kill where there is no risk. And if there is no guaranteed kill, it's probably because LGD are sitting too far back and they're just missing out on a lot of CS.
Yeah, completely. And actually, they're going to go on Xiao 8 right now, and they might actually pick up this first blood, even with the stun by Yao. I don't think this is going to be enough, and this will be first blood for Moon Meanders. This Queen of Pain support is actually working out really well right now for compLexity. Yeah,
it certainly is. Swindamelon's trying to get aggressive on, maybe with the help of Fly. That Rocket Barrage damage is actually enough to force Swindamelon's back. So they will both limp themselves away, dropping quite a lot of HP. Of course, Ember Spirit does still have another health potion. That is going to be fed to him. And does he have Bottle or Boots coming in? He's got Bottle coming in. So he is going to be trying to get that extra bit of regen and spam out some runes as well.
Yeah, and right now, this bottom lane is, I mean, advantage complexity right now. We don't see it very often. I've seen a few teams experiment with this support Queen of Pain. And yeah, it's not the best, but I think considering the circumstances, they're really making it work. And I think it's just the power of early Dagger, the Shadow Strike, that does so much, in conjunction with the fact that Tuskar is just such a strong offlane hero, right? Like, I'm pretty sure it's one that you play quite often as well. And it pairs pretty much with anything. Like, you just can't go wrong with the hero.
Yeah, you really can. I mean, it's why he's able to be effectively played as both an offlaner and a support, because it's just amazing how the Snowball can be such an amazing offensive skill and defensive at the same time, right? He's just overall a very versatile hero, and that's what allows him to be able to work in situations like this kind of interesting dual lane that they're running. Now, Z-Freak sitting on the bounty rune to make sure Swindamelons does get that refill of the bottle. The one lane we haven't actually talked about is the top lane, which is going rather poorly. Well, actually, it's not going that poorly. Every single time I look up here, like, Ziz is being lanced out and forced back, but now that you take a look at the CS, he's actually doing just fine.
Oh, yeah, he's doing just fine, considering the Winter Wyvern keeps going mid, right, to harass the gyrocopter. So considering the circumstances, like, he's doing fine by himself. He's not really in any danger because Dazzle, fantastic at sustaining fights, right? Like we talked about before, how this meta is just about trying to live longer than the other team, right? The one real big weakness about Dazzle, though, is he has almost no offensive potential. Like, the chance that they kill a Clinks using those two heroes is incredibly low, unless the Clinks just decides he's going to sit at, like, 150 HP their entire time.
Yeah.
And so that really changes things, because it means that Ziz isn't afraid of anything. Like, he's like, okay, I can pretty much do whatever I want in this lane, because worst comes to worst, if I get zoned out, I'll still get experience because their kill potential is so low.
Now, that being said, they do have one of the rare combinations which can be decently offensive with a Dazzle. The only way you can really get damage on a Dazzle usually is through Shadow Wave, and Sylar is probably one of the few carries that can actually allow that to happen by doppelgangering into a hero, or even just like Spirit Lancing and getting himself and the illusion on top, where if you get that Shadow Wave, it can do a lot, but it's very situational. It's sometimes very hard to get those opportunities to get some extra offensive damage out from a Dazzle. So while the opportunity is there, it's obviously going to be difficult to find it. Zhao Wade is going to be found by Moon Meander, who actually snuck his way into the trees, but MMY is now here to try and help out the lane. A beautiful play from Moon Meander, who actually used the snowball in order to escape, but unfortunately with Yao there sitting on the side, managed to get the Fisher to stop the retreat of Moon.
That Shadow Wave actually dealt so much damage. He was in the middle of so many things. It just wasn't enough for him to survive, but in terms of CS, he's still doing a really good job of keeping up, and he's doing actually better than his Clinks right now. Like, they're about even, but they're still applying pressure to this bottom lane. Like, that's the main thing, is that combined between the Lina and the Earthshaker, they have 19 CS, which is still 8 behind what Moon has. And it's not even like their carry is doing particularly poorly either. So in terms of CS, they're still doing a really good job of keeping up. And with that first blood, I still think things are somewhat even, but
maybe he saw this one and doesn't look like he's going to be caught out, though. I think he was just trying to bait it a little bit because he does have the Dazzle who was coming in, but this is a very smart idea, utilizing Tusk, especially once he's died, to rotate into one of the other lanes and try and gank it before he heads back to bottom. So naturally, go to middle lane, right? Try and stop, maybe try and shut him down, who's been known, I think, in the kind of same vein as Mushi, maybe. Oh, a little bit of action here. Swindamelons is going to be forced back. Fly comes in from the side to just put a little bit more harassment down onto maybe, but neither side will gain an advantage. But yeah, what I was saying is just I feel like maybe is one of those players. LGD as a whole is like they rely on maybe pretty hard to get an advantage in the early game and to snowball off of that.
Yeah, he's really one of my favorite players right now in Dota. Like, his Ember Spirit, his Storm Spirit, it's just fantastic. Like, he's who I'm trying to model my Storm Spirit play after, and I just think he's one of those players that have so much star potential on them, and I think you're completely right there, but again, this bottom lane just being zoned out. Even with that kill, they're still being defensive for the most part because they can't really contest this lane. And this Queen of Pain support, like, if you get caught out of position at all, she does have enough damage to chase you down and kill you.
Phase Boots now picked up by Maybe, who is trying to stack up, but he's going to be caught here quite heavily. He lays out the call down, tries to pick up the Bounty Rune, does grab it, lays out a serious amount of damage to Swindlemelons, stops that Flame Guard, which then takes away a large share of the damage. Swindlemelons is in some serious trouble, will end up dying, and now with the Shallow Grave, even Ziz is going to be forced away. In fact, he's going to lose this man fight against Maybe. Oh, Seafreak comes in, upsets that one in the end. Maybe does die, but it's a 2-for-1 trade-off with compLexity, rotating 4 different heroes up to the top rune.
And you just saw right there in a nutshell why Gyrocopter is such a valued pick. Like, he walks in with 200 HP by himself without even the Dazzle quite there yet, and he still manages to pick up the Ember Spirit, who's at full HP almost instantaneously. Like, he just drops. And then the Clinks comes in as well. Same exact thing happens. Like, Rocket Barrage as a spell is just so powerful in the early game. There's actually really very few spells that mirror it. Like, remember the old Edict on Leshrac where there was no cast animation and you could just chase people down, dealing like 1,000 damage a second? That's what it reminds me of right now.
Yeah, and it's particularly strong against a hero like Ember Spirit, who, like, all of his damage in this point in time of the game is all around Flame Guard. So when he dropped both Call Down as well as Rocket Barrage, he output so much magic damage that then he actually took away that Flame Guard really quickly, and then they were just completely out of steam. I mean, at that point, what does a Winter Wyvern do if there's no creeps around, and what does an Ember Spirit do if he has no Flame Guard? So a brilliant turnaround there from Maybe with an additional help of his Dazzle. They make a big play and manage to make a really decent trade-off despite Maybe dying. Now, looks like MMY is going to keep himself busy, but it's bottom lane where Z-Freak almost goes down, but a nice snowball save. Moon actually keeps his ally alive, but now he is definitely going to be run down here as the first lance to slow him down. Swindlemelons is coming in, though, and LGD, knowing that, are going to play a little bit more passively. They start chasing Moon and will still be able to catch him out, so that kill is guaranteed for LGD. Rest of compLexity, even Ziz making his rotation over as the Clinks just takes one of the creeps. Swindlemelons grabs an invis, but oh no, he's in some serious trouble, just gets bursted down again. compLexity just caught out. And now the scoreboard 6-2 as LGD start taking some serious control over this game.
Yeah, compLexity had that lead going in after the first blood. Even after the trade to kills, they were still okay because in CS, they were doing fine. Because that bottom lane still isn't very successful, but the amount of damage that maybe he's just outputting with this Rocket Barrage combo.
Beautiful call that with the Fissure on top. Oh, God, they like want to defend that one, but they just had no setup whatsoever, and LGD pounced on the first sign of weakness there, especially with a call down revealing that Tree's great heads-up play from Maybe, who's now going to make sure that Ziz doesn't even get the opportunity to take that middle tier 1 tower or even bring it a little low. Immediately chases him away, and the rest of LGD take the bottom tower.
Yeah, I think that was just a little bit sloppy by compLexity. As much as of a good play as it was to throw down the call down at the same time as the Fissure, you have to anticipate that, right? Like, you're TPing in, all 5 heroes were showing themselves on the map, and it is daytime, and so that should have been something that they anticipated, but unfortunately, you know, that's just 2 heroes that go down for almost no reason, and those start to add up, because if you just take a look now, Maybe he's got so much farm on him. He's got 64 CS, he's got 2 kills, he's got a full drums completed now, and so you're going to have a hard time killing him as is, and Swindle hasn't had the, you know, he hasn't had enough time to just sit there and farm, because he's reacting to the play around the map, and so it's been rough for him. So whatever fights they have to take right now, they have to be so cautious. Like, they just have to be a little bit more cleaner about their execution.
Ziz is still farming away, but it's going to be a few minutes before our Clinks is ready to come online. So if Ember Spirit is struggling to be able to keep up with some of the other heroes and our Clinks really isn't ready to go, there's not much else for compLexity to run on for the next 5 to 10 minutes. It seems like they're going to have to play more of a pick-off game until the Clinks is a lot more farmed. Now, Maybe has found both Bounty Rune as well as a haste, but it looks like compLexity almost want to challenge him anyway. They managed to get a chains out from Swindlemelons, but with Yao sitting behind him, Maybe isn't really that scared.
Yeah, with a haste rune and 10 magic charges, there's no way that they're going to approach him. Like, he's just going to be able to haste out, pretty much fight them endlessly. Because Swindle just doesn't have enough farm to contest him right now, and so I think the better play right now is to try to stabilize as much as you can. And it looks like the attempt is going to go on Sylar here at top, where the glyph is going to get popped in. There are enough heroes, and they have to do this. They actually have to get this kill right now.
Doppelganger and moving to the side, but the real Sylar is still caught out, but it seems like they tried to go for the illusions, and Sylar walks away. They thought it was a fake, but they were targeted on the real one. Now, Xiao White has already taken out the Queen of Pain. Moon Meander is stopped as well. That's going to be almost 3 down as Ziz managed to complete his TP just in the last half second. But tower goes down, 2 kills, force the Clinks back, and LGD just keep on marching through that top lane.
That was insane by Sylar. Like, he just sent his illusions all in a different location while sitting there auto-attacking creeps, and the Clinks is hitting him, and he's thinking, okay, he's the only one that hasn't moved yet. Like, he doesn't even react to the fact that I'm hitting. Yeah. This must be an illusion, but he should have trusted his gut instinct because the Phantom Lancer illusions at this point aren't strong enough to survive 8 hits by the Clinks. And so I think he just kind of got nervous. He's like, what if this isn't the real one? There's like 4 running away, and it was just a great play by Sylar.
Yeah, Ziz is going to be caught here. Beautiful setup, but not quite enough damage. The Urn is going to tick on him, but it isn't going to be enough to finish him off. So LGD miss out on that 1 kill. But yeah, just quite the nice play from Sylar. That was a doppelganger illusion, right? The one.
Yeah.
They assumed it was a doppelganger illusion. Oh, Swindamounts is now going to be hit by the call down, slowed down, and stunned up long enough that he's not able to make a jump away. Moon Meander now dropping quite low as Yao was able to chain stun him up. Xiao 8 is locked in by his allies and will be taken out. Fly, of course, had to sack himself in order to get that kill on the Lina. LGD still pick up 2 and take control of this middle tower.
Yeah, and maybe playing that gyrocopter, he's just doing so much damage right now. Nobody from compLexity can really stand up against the might of the Rocket Barrage, and right now it just seems like it's all LGD. As their early game control has been so strong this game, their movement is 5. This is an objective-based team, and right now they're doing a good job of systematically taking down all the towers while still keeping up in farm. But Z-Freak from the back.
Yeah, he was looking for an opening, you know, just with the better harassment from the ice shards or something. Maybe he could burst down a hero, but the problem is the Dazzle was keeping them too sustained. He gave an Urn over to the Earthshaker, was throwing out a couple of Shadow Waves here and there, and the result is everyone was tanky enough to survive through the 1-2 punch of Sonic Wave and Scream.
Yeah, the scary thing right now for Cole is that maybe has been stacking this Ancient Camp by himself without even the help of the supports, and typically that kind of stack is either meant to A, catch you back into the game, or B, you just get so far ahead in compLexity. They're actually going to try to catch him out here, and this is their comeback smoke, is they really need a kill out of this.
Oh, absolutely.
Possible, trade at the worst.
Yeah, Snowball's going to come in. Maybe is instantly blown up. No, the Shellgrave actually came in time. Maybe he's going to be saved here. The Shadow Strike will finish him off eventually, but he's still got enough damage to finish off 2, making a 3rd as Swindamound goes down as well. Finally, they get the Ice Shards out from Moon Meander. Great play there, but it's still making only a small dent in the gigantic lead that LGD have now cooped themselves.
That was 3 heroes that got traded, and a Smoke Ink is the thing. Is yeah, you're happy that you killed maybe, but the cost was a little bit too high there. And compLexity, I like the fact that they're still looking for opportunities, but going under the tier 1 like that, it just felt a little bit desperate for me. Like, it was a move that I feel like they're okay with making most of the time, but in a situation where you're down 15-4, you have to be a little bit more safe. Like, trading 1 for 1 there probably isn't bad. Maybe even 2 for 1 isn't terrible, but getting caught that cleanly is just, it's a little bit too much.
Well, Swindamound's coming in from the side. They still have that haste up on Moon Meander, but again, this is always the problem with Earthshaker. Being run, when you deal with him, whether it's support or off lane, he just has natural stats that allows him to be able to tank through the burst damage. And then you throw a good sustained healer like the Dazzle with the constant Shadow Waves and Urns. Like, the Earthshaker is just never going to be a hero that you can poke at and kill real quickly like you want to.
Yeah, he's actually got so much farm already. He's already got a Blink Dagger. It looks like at top they want to set something up on this, but...
Oh, big whiff there from Yao as he jumps with the Blink to try and catch out Z-Freak and throws out the Echo Slam in a desperate attempt to stop that Blink away, but not in range and not in time still, though the tier 2 tower will fall.
Yeah, they're going for the trade right now in towers, and this is the move compLexity has to make right now. Like, there's actually no way that they can defend this top tier 3 or tier 2 tower because they're not in position A and B. They just don't have any heroes that can kill the creep wave to stop the push to begin with. And with Yao having such an early Blink Dagger and Xiaowei playing the Lina, he's actually got a Yule Scepter and a gem. There's just too many ways to get opened up on then. So what compLexity now have to go for is the split push game where they just try not to get picked off by the gem carrier. Like, you just have to actively feed each other information and hope that you can keep your cores alive long enough so that you can finally start to build up some items.
Counter ward actually blocking out the camp. Does this other ward block out the camp as well? It's pretty close.
Yeah, it is pretty close.
So we'll see what
sure.
happens here in the next 8 seconds. But either way, that's a pretty interesting play. Because as you said, you're just looking like stall time and everything. And that's the one camp that you can almost like guaranteed farm, right? As complexity. Every like minute or so, you should be able to find an opening to farm that camp. And even that is now taken away by LGD's warding.
Yeah, they've been doing a really good job right now of not letting complexity get any sort of momentum or pick up any sort of split push going. And LGD, I mean, they're headed to this Roche pit, but they don't have a medallion or anything like that. So it's really unlikely that this is anything more than just a warding expedition. And in this top lane, Z-Freak, he's kind of switched gears. Like, he realizes he's the hero with the blink, so he has to get active around the map. Because you don't really care if he dies. Like, as odd as that sounds, it's more just the fact that you're hoping that he does more. But
oh no, Yule Scepter into the Light Strike Array, and finally it happens. Iz ran into the gem carrier.
But that's the thing, is that Z-Freak was trying to get them to go on him instead. It's almost like a sacrificial death, but instead they just scout out their own jungle.
Swindamelons having to deal now with a Phantom Lancer who's operating on a diffusal blade. Swindamelons is forced to make a TP out. That's how dangerous the Phantom Lancer is. PL is just one gigantic step ahead. Like, our Ember Spirit is operating on items that say, like, 12, 15 minute, while our Phantom Lancer is farmed enough ahead that I'm looking at like a 20 minute, 20, 25, 30 minute Phantom Lancer with this diffusal blade. Like, that's the mid-game build. It just feels like our PL's one gigantic step ahead of the Ember Spirit, and kind of always will be at this point. Like, if you've already hit your mid-game stride, I feel like that then means that the Phantom Lancer is easily going to start tanking up enough that even once the Ember Spirit does have the Battle Fury, it just won't do a dent in these illusions because they have so many stats.
Yeah, Ember's a decent counter, but it's still a soft counter to the Phantom Lancer, especially if you get behind in farm. But they might actually just catch somebody here. Z-Freak, good job catching that smoke. Is going to blink out, and this might reveal intentions, because I think LGD, this was like a hopeful smoke. It's like, we get a kill or we don't. It doesn't really matter.
They rotate into their own jungle. Good mind there. They know that not only is Swindamelons pushing, but it's also the fact that very often Clinks is going to be taking away your jungle, especially since they already warded at least one camp in the enemy jungle. So clearing through their own jungle, making sure that's secured. Swindamelons now going to be running into Zhao 8. Light Strike Array does land on the money, and the follow-up stuns are there as well. Meanwhile, Snowball getting laid into Sylar. They desperately need this kill, but the Shallow Grave is already there, and he's got a Doppelganger up in 2 seconds, so he is completely fine. Complexity are forced to back as Sylar gets reinforcements.
Yeah, and they use so many ultimates there that I think this is LGD's cue to just head down the mid lane. They know that the Winter's Curse is on cooldown. From the sounds of it, yeah, the Queen of Pain Sonic Wave is used at the same time. And for complexity, those are your saving graces in team fights. Like, if either of those spells aren't up, like, you need both of them, not just one, for the comeback right now. And so if both of them are down, I think this is going to be LGD's cue to just head down and pretty much do whatever they want.
Zhao 8 has caught another one. Yule Scepter, and Ziz is done for. It's not even needing an Echo Slam.
Yeah, the amount of damage that both of these guys have, and they've been working together all game long. Like, the Yule Scepter with the gem on top of the Earthshaker Slam, there's almost no hero that's going to survive this, and the Clinks is doing the best he can to split, but there's just so much map control lost when you get that early gem, and you have the map control that you have. There's nowhere you can really ward. At that point, you're just playing a guessing game.
MMY, truly the sacrificial player of LGD, is sitting on the bottom of the net worth, but if you exclude him, everyone else is sitting above. Swindamelons just gets destroyed there as LGD find yet another opening to jump him. Again, the opportunities that they find, such as that top lane, they're so far ahead in that situation. They don't need to use Echo Slam, so then they still have it up to find yet another kill. It's just snowballing so heavily against complexity, and they just cannot seem to find any ground to stand on.
Yeah, and if you're complexity, you're kind of happy because LGD doesn't have the best Roche lineup, and even their high ground isn't fantastic, but mid, they're just getting picked apart. Kill after kill right now is Fly gets the Cold Embrace off, and this might actually be an opportunity, but no, there's no backup whatsoever. He's going to go down. MMY, playing the least offensive support there is on a dominating spree.
It's 20-4 right now. 22 minutes in, taking a look net worth-wise, 12,000 gold lead and 10,000 experience is going to go for the back door at the Tier 1 tower at top lane. Good pickup. Glyph actually gets laid down for a second there. Swindamelons at the bottom lane, though, is in some serious trouble. He's still got the spirit, so he will jump back to it in time. It's incredibly hard to actually land the Light Strike array in time before he remnant jumps.
Yeah, at the same time, his Flame Guard instantly gets evaporated, and maybe picking up a solo kill onto a Queen of Pain, which is a little bit unexpected, but considering he has 441 move speed and the drums active available, he's just able to close the distance so quickly, and they might actually go for the Roshan here. It's still a little bit difficult for their team because I don't think they have a medallion, right? Yeah, they don't. So it would take a little bit of time, so maybe they even just go high ground here with the advantage that they have.
They don't have a good carry for taking out Roshan either, right? Because Phantom Lancer, any illusion hero, isn't going to have a great time with Roshan. Gyrocopter's physical damage is, well, it's about to get big. He's got S and Y now, an Eagle Song, so Butterfly is going to be on the way soon, but it's still not nearly as much as some other carries would offer.
Yeah, he's just trying to build as tanky as he possibly can for these fights, so they don't blow anything right now. And with the amount of counter-initiate that LGD have, they're just doing a good job right now of distributing farm, making absolute sure that one core isn't too far ahead of the other. Like, they're all keeping up in farm. Like, all top 4 net worth, all LGD right now.
Mm-hmm. Our Tusk is complexity's highest farmed hero, sitting at 6,500. Does have the Midas, but it's going to take a while for that to pay out, and I'm not sure if Complexity can make the game go long enough that it works out. Yep, they picked him off. Fisher laid into a Blink Echo Slam, and once again, Swindamelons is unable to make the escape.
You're seeing the weakness of Ember 2 against the Phantom Lancer. If you notice, he gets his Flame Guard instantly purged, and then LGD is just on top of him instantly. Like, Yao throws the Fissure from range, and then he Echo Slams. It's a kill every single time, and without the Ember Spirit, I think even with the Ember Spirit, he's not even close to the Battle Fury. There's no way they can hold this right now. I think they actually just have to give it up and just allow the Clinks to try to split push. And he's going for this mid tower right now, but you're still doing it at the cost of a Rax.
Yeah, thanks to the double damage, he will be able to take it, but as you said, the Rax is pretty much forfeit. There's no way that Complexity are going to be able to defend it, it seems. Fly does have the Winter's Curse. Maybe they can try and catch somebody on the way out, especially with Swindamelons here now, but LGD actually just turn and fighting with Maybe now operating on that Invis rune from his bottle. He's actually going to try and take this fight as they caught Swindamelons, now trying to burst him down. The Cold Embrace is there, but he does not have the Remnant jump away, so he will immediately die as Cold Embrace fades. They pick up another kill, buyback out from Swindamelons as he comes back from the side, but he's going to be locked down again. A tieback now for our carry on Complexity. 4 down, and all we're left with the Tusk, and immediate GG is the call from Complexity. As 27-4, LGD are now 3-0 in the group stage.
And what a dominant performance from them. The laning phase, you know, it could have gone a little bit better, but you can't really fault them for anything past that. Their team play was absolutely phenomenal. They never let the split push develop at all. Anytime their lanes were being pushed in, Austin, they just immediately backed off, reset, and they didn't just reset, they went for the kill. Like, they TP'd 2 heroes when they went for the Clinks at top. They made sure the gem was there with the Earthshaker, and every single time the synergy between Xiao8 and Yao was just fantastic throughout.
I mean, even the call there just to straight up end the game towards the end rather than delaying it out by going for Roshan and then trying to come back was an incredibly smart play. I mean, very few teams would have the balls to try and push uphill without an Aegis so early on to the game, but I mean, LGD were just so far ahead that they made it look easy. So that's just game number 1, guys. Hopefully Complexity will come back in game 2 with a bit more of a fighting spirit, but LGD looking like a tough opponent to beat right now. Welcome back, everybody, to game number 2 between LGD Gaming and compLexity Gaming. LGD taking game number 1 very convincingly, though we've already said that once today, Blitz, in our last series with Secret versus Fnatic. So upsets are entirely possible. This is TI after all. There is not a single team here that doesn't have at least the potential to provide upsets.
Yeah, you're really silly if you think any team is going to run the gauntlet, I feel.
Yeah, absolutely. They're going to go undefeated in the group, is what you mean?
Yeah, I think that Secret had a good chance. I think AG does, but at the same time, I mean, best or 2-game series, anything can happen, and these are I feel like this is the best group of talent we've had in TI.
Absolutely.
Like, since, ever, actually, and so I think that there's no really weak team. There's no team that you're just going to say, you know, this team would get stomped by everybody else. Fnatic, a team that people had question marks about. I mean, they just went on to dominate Secret harder than I've seen Secret ever been stomped before, and so it's hard to just discount. And compLexity is a team. You know, that first game, what I really want to highlight is just that their opening moves were really good. Like, they responded well to LGD's draft. There were moments where like the Queen of Pain offlane looked like it was going to work. And then there was just a snowball effect. Like, they dove a little bit too hard under that tower, then MMY TP's down, and then the Tusk dies, and then it just became like a snowball effect. You know, they TP'd in when they saw 5 heroes there. Just mistakes that I don't want to say like they were major mistakes because it didn't lose them the game, but they just added up so quickly, and there were mistakes that were obvious, and they should be obvious to compLexity. They just have to tell themselves, like, don't get tilted. It's not that big of a deal. Like, these are things that we can correct.
Yeah, just got to clean up our game. I mean, this is only their second series of TI, so, you know, there's still some things, obviously, that they may need to work out as time goes on. So maybe this 4th game of theirs is going to show more improvement. Now, our first 2 bands coming out, The Undying and Gyrocopter by LGD, Leshrac and Shadow Fiend now from compLexity. I would say these are probably the most typical bands I would expect in the first 1-2. Obviously, there are some signature heroes still left over, probably the most notable being Tusk, which we've kind of highlighted multiple times now in this group stage.
Yeah. Now, I expect compLexity, there's something like an Earthshaker and a Dazzle that's still left over that they can pick. That's still incredibly strong. That seems to be the standard response to some team picking Tusk. I don't know if compLexity wants to go for that. When I watched them play in the qualifiers, I think I casted the most games by them, by far. And it seemed like they were most comfortable getting into situations where they could 5-man early, take objectives as a group, and just simply outplay the other team.
Yes.
And last game, obviously, we never even saw them get close to that because I felt like they responded a little bit too much to what LGD were doing. Like, we have to take the Ember instead of just doing what they naturally had planned, I feel, which was stick the Queen of Pain mid. And yes, the FL is going to be annoying, but still, stick to your guns, you know?
They are going to go for the Dazzle. The Dazzle is definitely one of those 5-man heroes, so I do completely agree with your analysis. I felt like when watching the North American qualifiers, compLexity was the team that was playing the best as a team, right? Their 5-man was by far superior to any other team in the qualifiers for the North American region. So that is clearly their bread and butter, clearly the area that they are strongest at. And Dazzle obviously fits that quite well.
Yeah, so I could see compLexity taking even a hero like Viper here. I think that Queen of Pain is still a really strong option, even though they just lost with her. They had a sticker in a position that was a little bit awkward, but I feel like the options that are obvious to me anyways are the Viper, the Queen of Pain, with the Queen of Pain maybe edging out the Viper slightly, because it's just a good hero. Like, we've seen time and time again, like, the hero's just so stable in every phase of the game. Like, you can go late game with it. It's got a good early game, the mid game, the laning phase. Like, there's no real overt weaknesses that the Queen of Pain shows. And so I think it's still the correct option here in terms of picks.
The reason Queen of Pain would edge out the Viper, you talked about the strengths of the Queen of Pain, but, like, the weakness of the Viper would be that he drops off as you go late game, right? That would be the biggest difference between the two?
Yeah, definitely. But compLexity just ignores that, and they go for the Dragon Knight, a hero that they used often. Like, we just talked about how they like to group up together, take down towers together. This is by far one of the most reliable heroes at going high ground, and it was banned last game. And I know for a fact that this is a hero that Swindle feels really comfortable playing. So I'm playing it pretty frequently for the last 4 months, and they're actually the only North American team that still run it fairly frequently.
You want to know why he's maybe so comfortable with it?
What's up, dog?
Just look at Dragon Knight. Doesn't he look a little bit like Swindamones?
Yeah, so if
He really
Dragonite
does.
had a little bit of that black patch under his chin, if that was like facial hair, I could see that.
Yep.
I know it's a shadow, but it looks like facial hair.
It really does.
It really does. Okay, I could see that.
Yeah. So he sees a little bit of himself in Dragonite now. LGD Gaming already dipping into their reserve time, perhaps just because of the unexpected nature of having Dragonite second picked. Obviously, they banded away in the 3-4 because they know compLexity like to run it, right? But they may not have expected compLexity to take that leap and go second pick Dragonite. That's rather rare, and I think that says a lot about the way you wanted to draft for Game 2. It feels to me compLexity are like, we just really want to get the heroes that we're comfortable with. And other teams, I would say, look at the Dragonite early pickup and say maybe that's a bit of drafting weakness, you know, because you leave yourself exposed going for a DK in the second pick. But it does fit compLexity's style so much so that it doesn't matter. It's worth the risk.
They did that in the qualifiers as well. Like, they didn't really care where they drafted certain heroes. Like, I remember before when I saw them play in the BTS America, they actually just picked up a sniper, like second pick, even when it fell out of favor and when it wasn't in favor, just because.
Yeah.
And I actually wanted to cut in and say that I felt like LGD was going to take the Ancient Apparition, but I didn't. Because it's one of the better heroes against both Dazzle and the Dragonite, right? Because the Dragonite relies so heavily on that HP, and the Dazzle just pretty much gets negated during that time period where you can't really heal people after the grave. That's the combination that you want, right?
Yeah.
So the Ancient Apparition works out really well, and it is a hero that Xiao8 loves to pick. Always has, always will.
Broodmother and Phantom Lancer now being banned away by LGD Gaming. The Queen of Pain and Viper taken out by compLexity. Again, I guess the Phantom Lancer, last time LGD were kind of set up to deal with the Phantom Lancer and then ended up picking it for themselves. This time, they don't have that defense. They really don't have good heroes, at least in the first one, too, to deal with PL, so they just take it out entirely. compLexity, meanwhile, they don't want to deal with a Queen of Pain or a Viper mid up against Dragonite. That's a very winning matchup. And this is one of the big downsides of the Dragonite being picked up early, right, is that he is 99% going to be run as a mid laner. And that leaves some very obvious matchups that will fail for the Dragonite, that will be more one-sided to LGD. Viper, Queen of Pain are two of them. There's a third in the Razor, which we've mentioned before in the group stage. That could be a possible pickup for LGD. But compLexity, as their third pick, now go for the Earthshaker.
Okay, so compLexity, I think they should take Naga here. I think that you want to drag the game out to a certain extent, where you can get an early tower advantage with the Dazzle, Dragonite, Earthshaker, but I feel like they should have some sort of fallback plan. Either that, or you just completely all-in commit for the push.
Yeah, so you either go the late game route, or you go like the all-in, like, let's pick up a core Pugna and wreck towers by 20 minutes.
Yeah, I don't know if Pugna is the hero, but something like something that can just tower assault, like a Drow Ranger, Wind Ranger, Wraith King, something that can just like non-stop fight, I think would be a perfectly decent option. But I would like to see them go for something that can drag out to the late game, because I feel like, especially his strength is going to that phase of the game, like playing the Naga, playing the Clinks, playing the Phantom Lancer, like those are his types of heroes. Like, and so the Clinks, yep, it's got to be one of them. I mentioned the Clinks, but yep, that's got to be the hero. And LGD with the most classic pairing in Dota, maybe?
Yep. Wisp and a Tiny. Now, this combination gives a lot of pushing power to LGD as well, but it is a lot slower. Like, a lot slower. If they can actually get the Egg and Interceptor, Tiny can start threatening buildings, but Dragonite and Clinks do it naturally. They don't actually need any items, just levels, and they can threaten towers fairly early on. So it feels like compLexity should be getting control of this game early because, I mean, just setting up even the Ancient Apparition, right, isn't anything until he picks up level 6, right? So I feel like LGD have a much slower role. compLexity can kind of, if the laning phase goes well, or at least draws even for them, should be able to get this ball rolling much faster by taking the early middle 1 tower and the early off-lane tower away from LGD via their Clinks and Dragonite. And now we're just left with the last pick, an off-laner, unless Earthshaker is being run as a core here for compLexity.
Yeah, I actually really like the Clinks pickup against IO. I think it's just one of those combinations that are incredibly strong. But compLexity does have one more hero to go. Maybe even, I would have said the Nature's Prophet, but he kind of has a hard time against the Tiny IO combination.
Yeah. Especially with Tiny sometimes going for Blink Dagger, that makes it even harder for Furion, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that seems to be a really common pickup nowadays. And so, Tidehunter, okay. This is definitely meant to be the 5-man lineup.
Yeah, this
of
is
all 5-man lineups.
This feels like complexity through and through. But the pickup that I mentioned earlier, for once I get to have some drafting, Razor. It's going to be the 5th pick of LGD.
It's always like that. Was Viper banned?
Listen, just give me this, Blitz.
Cap,
just give
was
me this.
Viper banned?
Just give me this, Blitz. Just give me this.
Who told you that? Like before this tournament, I was like, it's Viper. If Viper's banned, it's Razor.
Fine. Take that away from me too, Blitz.
If you guys want to sound smart in front of your friends, if there's no Viper, then it's a Razor. Like it's just there's like an 80% chance. It always happens. Like the last 3 games that we've casted, if you stuck with us in the stream, that's what it always is. If you didn't see a Viper, you saw a Razor.
You guys are getting some expert analysis.
You are.
You know that like we don't have nearly as many viewers as the other 2 games right now.
Well, I'll just cheat for you.
Exactly. So you're getting information that all those other people who are watching those other streams aren't getting.
Yeah.
So you guys keep that in mind. You can start laying down the law.
Yeah.
And then later on, you just be like, Cap and Blitz told me that.
No, you don't even take credit yourself, dude. Just tell your friends that you're some sort of genius, like 8K player that has 2K mechanics, and that's why you're stuck in 3K. Like, just blatantly lie to your friends. Like that's why they're your friends, because they'll still love you even after they discover your deception.
Why? Hold up. Why are you encouraging this though? Isn't that the thing that you hate the most? When people try and tell you, "Oh, I'm actually a 5K player, but I'm stuck in a 3K." Right?
Man, I'm just telling you, lie to your friends. That's create deception and sow the seeds of doubt.
And this is why Blitz is a great Mafia player, because he is willing to lie to his friends at all times.
Yeah, you just have to be able to, like, if I was listening to the stream and I had never played Dota, I'd be like, huh, that's a good comment. And then I would just say it. If I was going to the International, I'd just be like, you know what? If there's they banned out the Viper, I think the Razor's going to be a good pickup there. Like, I would do that every single time. Not even lying.
Just regurgitate.
Very unashamed.
Just regurgitate whatever the co-casters have told you. All right, so we got a slight pause here. It looks like Z-Freak's keyboard isn't working. But the last pickup of Tidehunter and Razor, let's talk about it a little bit. complexity, very team fight oriented. You've got great pushing power between their first 2 cores, and now great team fight potential with their last core pickup. The laning phase, maybe a little bit more difficult, and this is probably one of the reasons that Tidehunter hasn't been picked up a whole lot in this current meta, right? Is that it's difficult to make the laning phase work for him as opposed to many of the other offlaners that we're seeing, right? Because take Clockwork and Tusk, the 2 offlaners that you mentioned the most right now. Both of them have ways to either get farm. Well, both of them have ways to be able to get farm, or at the very least experience Tusk by rotating around early pre-level 6 with Snowball and Ice Shards in order to get kills in the other lanes. And Clock just cogs block until he gets his level 6. And they're both able to operate without items. Tidehunter doesn't have that kind of advantage. He has to farm a Blink Dagger.
This is going to be so hard for complexity in the laning phase. But the thing is, people are going to be like, why would they lane like this? But this was very deliberate. Like, they wanted to pick like this, right? The Tidehunter in general has such a hard time if you're one-on-one against a Razor. And that's the strength of the hero, is that you get to play that one-on-one matchup, right? And Razor's just inherently going to destroy Tide without even any sort of help. Like, that means that the IO can just spend his time stacking, which he will do, and help out mid. Xiao 8 in this mid lane, you know, he can just, like, pretty much go wherever he wants. Like, he can just focus on getting level 6 by pulling this camp repeatedly. Yeah. Like, there's just so many options right now that LGD have in terms of the laning phase that it's going to be really, really difficult for LGD to be able to compete. Or for complexity to be able to compete. And so everything has to go into the mid game.
Yeah.
Like, their mid game just has to be flawless. Like, complexity, this is what they came in knowing. You know, like, this is how they played during the TI qualifiers, and I think this is what you have to rely on now.
Oh, unable to snag it. Ziz twice in a row. Tries to go for the bounty rune, but unable to grab it. MMY is just a bit faster. Swindamelons does get the bounty rune at top lane, though. So a safe lane clinks, a mid lane with Dragonite and Z-Freak. Well, he's probably going to be bouncing back to bottom lane. but may keep his rotation back and forth. While Moon Meander, as the Tide Hunter, he got an early block off from the Earthshaker, which is going to, I think, be hugely helpful to a Tide. This just kind of ensures he's in a good position, creep equilibrium-wise, for his first level. But he is going to be paired up against the Razor in a 1 versus 1. Obviously, that's never going to go favorably to him.
Yeah, it's why you take the Razor or the Viper, just because it's so incredibly strong to be able to get into these positions. Because think about the heroes that are really popular in the offlane, right? It's the Tusk and the Clockwork. And the issue with both those heroes is, A, they can't really harass you back, especially if you're a ranged hero, right? So now you're stuck in a position where you have a hero like Razor or Viper that can pretty much solo zone you out without any help. So it just becomes really difficult for either of those heroes to
careful with that courier, and MMY, careful with where you're positioning yourself in order to try and get that courier. It seemed like a bait both ways. But either way, both the courier and our Little Wisp will walk away quite healthy, maybe as an early set of boots paired up with the Wisp Tether. He's going to be moving like a speed demon now.
Yeah, and Swindle still has to be careful. Like, he's doing okay right now in this lane, just surviving. But the strength of the tiny IO is that you don't really realize how quickly they can kill you.
Yeah.
Like, it's a silent killer. And so you have to be ready for that burst damage potential that they provide. And at the same time, when MMY goes to do the stacked camp or when he goes for a rune, you have to take advantage of Swindle Melons and just try to get whatever you can. Like, now he's actually using his hero to just blast at creeps instead of having to use the Breathe Fire every single time. Like, he can get in melee range. But as soon as both those heroes come back, he just has to play the high ground. Like, look at this.
Yep, they immediately jump onto him, toss him back for that extra bit of right-click damage, which they will get. They actually do a good amount of burst damage to MMY, dropping down to about 40 HP. Swindlemelons, though, blocked out by that said Fissure from Fly, means that Swindle is now going to die because of it. He actually gives away the first blood to Maybe, as he just had to run down river, and obviously Maybe, especially with the boots at first advantage, was going to be able to just run him down.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about, Cap. It's that if you're caught in that type of position and you're not on the high ground, as soon as they went to go get the rune, he felt confident because, you know, he got MMY a little bit low, but he had a regen bottled, and he should have known that the turnaround potential was going to come in, and so he has to be a little bit more careful in this lane. Like, he was so careful up until that moment, right? And that's the thing, is that happens to everybody. They get a little bit too confident, and then the burst damage potential is right there.
Right.
Like, you have to respect it at all times. Like, even if you think the lane is going okay, it's one of the easiest combos to execute and just kill somebody.
Now, how's our bottom lane doing? Why do you think that they put Ancient Apparition here in the bottom lane with Tusk?
Oh, Swindle.
They jump at him again. Yep, they bring him low. The good Fissure to be able to stop some of that damage. There's another toss, but it's a bit too late. Swindlemelons already healed himself up from the bottle.
This bottom lane, though, it's pretty favored for the Tusk plus Ancient Apparition because, again, like I said, the Dazzle's an amazing hero in the mid game. But in terms of being able to zone out a hero or give you any sort of offensive firepower, it's non-existent.
Mm-hmm. And I suppose with the combination of both Snowball and Ice Shards, especially with the Ice Shards essentially blocking someone out, forcing them to go around, that kind of means the Cold Feet should be able to proc a lot of the time. So this is actually a pretty decently offensive combination where usually Ancient Apparition is a bit lacking, at least when it comes to just two heroes.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like, there's actually a lot of setup for him, and the fact that they're just giving the Razor solo farming experience is really good because he absolutely needs it.
Mm-hmm.
And Xiao 8 does need some levels. I would have actually kind of liked to see him in this top lane, but considering it is a dual lane at bottom, I think this is just fine. But
ooh, Swindlemelon's been caught. He tried to hide himself in the trees, but they actually ran him down, and now with Yao joining the party, they will be able to get that one kill. At the same time, the double damage Z-Freak, not enough to finish off MMY. He barely lives. And Z-Freak, if he's not careful, he'll die to the toss. Gets the heal off just in time, though. And LGD walk away. Just one kill, Richard, but it was an important one, the Dragonite.
And this is one of those dual lanes where, like, it gets a surprising amount of kills. I think it was once Jaw that once told me, he's like, if you know what a combination Dota does, you should never die to it, right? Because it's really clear what their objective is. And I think that it's just hard to respect the combination because you think to yourself, stun toss, I can live through that. I've got 700 HP, but you just can't. You're always going to get run down.
Yeah, and then you have the extra damage there as well because it's sometimes the stun and then toss backwards, which gets a lot more right clicks, or maybe there's enough time where there's a secondary toss as well from the Tiny because it is a relatively low cooldown. It's just a very tough lane to work against, and Swindlemelons is obviously suffering quite heavily to it. as maybe he's now just willing to toss out random creeps against Swindamelons because he's always got the backup regen of the Wisp.
Oh, not
and sure
again.
enough, that early toss might just spell the death of Swindamelons, as now he's been weakened enough that the one combination from maybe almost finished him off, but he does manage to live, again, thanks to the rotation from Fly. Meanwhile, top lane, been watching Moon Meander kind of dance around with Sylar. He's doing okay. Like, this is just a lane that's never going to go well for a Tidehunter. He really shouldn't get very much CS at all. But he's doing okay in experience-wise. He hasn't been completely run out of lane.
Yeah, but after a while, the CS advantage that LGD is building up is going to be quite significant. This Dragon Knight, for anybody that's really wondering what CS benchmarks are like in pro games, I think 25 at 5 minutes is pretty reasonable. And he's at 16 right now. And considering he's been spamming his spells nonstop, it's a little bit low, but you have to consider it's tiny IO against a Dragon Knight. Like, he's going to struggle against that no matter what. So I can't fault him too much. But I do think that, you know, he could relax a little and tell himself, like, I just have to play a little bit safer. I can still come back to this game. And I think he's still drafted a good lineup to be able to fight around the map and stuff like that. So Swindamelons, you know, just don't worry. Don't freak out about it. But LGD, if I'm giving advice to LGD, keep up the pressure nonstop.
Yeah, and that's exactly what they're doing here in this middle lane, but they may be caught because of it. Swindamelons is still going to go down as Yao actually gives the snowball effort to be able to finish off the Dragon Knight. Now Moon Meander's stuck in a very bad position. He gets the Shallow Grave, but they're just going to run him down until they can toss him up in the air, or the Tusk, and perfectly timed by maybe managing to finish him up the Tidehunter as he runs himself away. The Ice Shards out from our Tusk, but a good Fissure separating both maybe and MMY. Z-Freak actually ran backwards. Now he's going to be caught by maybe because of that double kill from maybe. LGD just running rickshaw all over compLexity in this game too.
Maybe is actually so good at the timing with the toss.
He really is.
They're going to go on Swindle again. He can't survive this combination. This is going to be too much damage for him as the Ice Shards fall at the same time. Swindle does have his boots, but not fast enough at running away as MMY gets the last hit with the Spirits, and he actually just TP'd and died once again. Like, they just anticipated the rotation coming. They had this ward in position, and, I mean, they're just abusing him now.
They surely are. And Sylar is taking more and more control over this top lane now that he has that phase boots advantage. He's always able to run down the Tidehunter, the maxed out static link, and he's using that damage to turn down this tier 1 tower. It's already below half HP. Not being too overly aggressive, though. compLexity have already shown a propensity to try and rotate heroes around to kind of help out their failing lanes. They saw that in the middle lane. Now they actually try and rotate up to the top lane. But LGD are playing both aggressive enough in order to really push the advantage that they have, but also making sure that they don't get caught.
Yeah, they're doing a really good job right now of keeping up the pressure without overcommitting anything. Like, that's what I really noticed about teams like this. Like, LGD is so disciplined right now, and I think a large part of it is just that Xiao Wade is controlling things around the map, saying, like, you guys can go in here and there, and maybe it just seems so perfect with his spell usage. Like, every single time, he's always on the money with when he uses the toss to finish off the Shallow Grave timings, and so he's just done a really good job of that. And MMY accidentally messed up there. He had like 100 HP, and he walked into a bunch of neutral creeps, and he meant to pull away. Like, that was not a intentional suicide at all. Like, he still had gold and everything.
Yeah, oh yeah, he really did. He finishes up his urn now. Still has enough to be able to buy boots if he wants it, or finishes up the wand. Meanwhile, their middle tower does drop, because while they were farming that one, Swindamelons has been slowly chipping away with his ultimate. Swindamelons gets caught by the snowball. Yao turned around by the Fissure. They're actually going to come in with the relocate play here. Ravage goes off immediately in order to stun these two up. Do they actually have the AoE disabled? Doesn't look like it. Both Moonmi and the Earthshaker end up going down. Swindamelons is now trying to run himself away from Sylar as he joins the party. Z-Freak trying to be the target. Oh, actually relocates back the Tiny. Swindamelons does still get caught by Yao and will end up going down as he can't even run himself away. Ziz did TP in, but once again, Clinks can't really do anything in the first 20 minutes of the game. So even though he rotates, there's nothing he can pick off.
Yeah, I think MMY's clowning around a little because they should have been able to get the kill on the Dazzle if he doesn't keep the tether going there.
Yeah.
But it just feels like they're playing so loose, so carefree. They understand the type of lead they've established, and against a tiny IO, this isn't a combination you want to be behind. Like, that's the strength of the combination, is that if you're behind as a tiny IO, there's a lot of different ways you can catch up. You can split push, you can go for the ganks, but when you're ahead, it just feels like there's just non-stop momentum. Like, they have a sentry here already. all those spells are going to fall on him. Maybe he's going to be unstoppable now, and there's just no saving grace right now for compLexity.
No, there really isn't. At this point in time, LGD, they've got the Ice Blast ready to go. They've got a Tiny who now has Blink Daggers, so he's always ready to fight and try and get more hero pickoffs. Moon Meander's not going to be getting a Blink Dagger anytime soon. In fact, he's going to be dying the Siler now as he uses that gigantic movement speed increase between Unstable Current and Phase Boots to just run down the Tidehunter. And perhaps Yao is going to get a free kill on Fly as well. Blocking him out, Relocate's going to come in to make sure there is no escape for Fly, but there wasn't anyway.
Yeah, there's so much gold going the way right now of LGD. Complete map control. It just feels like they're everywhere at once.
Z-Freak, full HP, goes for the Shallow Grave, but that just means maybe says, fine, I'll go for Swindlemelons instead. Brings him low enough that Yao is able to grab the kill.
Yeah, now it's 13-1, and that one death being that suicide to the Ancient Creep, or to the neutral creeps on the Wisp, and it doesn't even matter as Sylar's beginning to push out this tower by himself. It actually looks like they're a little bit out of touch, because if you notice, the IO is going for a mech of his own when his Razor already has it.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
when that typically happens, it's either A, your team's really out of sync because you're just frustrated, or B, you're just playing your own games because you're so far ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they probably just weren't communicating that at all because there's no need to at that point.
Maybe. Yeah, they toss in the toss. Go for Z-Freak in the background, and Walrus Punch snowball it up. He couldn't even get off the Shallow Grave. This is why Z-Freak full HP Shallow Grave last time. Now, the Ravage is going to be able to catch both of the LGD members on their way out, but a really good Ice Blast is going to make sure that Moon Meander pays the ultimate price. And now, with Sylar just diving into these Tier 2 towers, they're willing to fight compLexity full on. Fly managed to get a really good Fisher there. Ziz is also trying to fight up against the rest of LGD, but they're selling healthy enough that they even get kills underneath the Tier 2 tower. Now Swindlemelons comes in, trying to finish off Yao, but it's still not enough damage. As Shallow Grave comes out, Swindlemelon turns to fight. He knows he's dead, and he's just trying to get whatever kills he can, but there's just none to be had. Ultra kill from Maybe and beyond godlike LGD, now going for a relocate back to base, because why the hell not?
And he's so farmed now. He's got drums. He's got enough for his point booster. At 12 minutes, maybe he's already 10-0 and 5. It's hard to comprehend how he got so farmed. They're up technically 18-0. They literally ran like this. They fought in this circle like 4 times. Like, they're just pretty much walking wherever they want. They just don't care anymore.
So they now go for the Tier 2 tower, and compLexity will be giving that one up. It seems they need more farm time for the Clinks. This seems to be, I mean, LGD have broken down how to deal with Clinks, I think, twice in a row. Now, obviously, this is more of an advantage than you normally should get, but and just the early pressure really shows some serious weaknesses in the Clinks.
Oh, yeah. Him to build up any sort of potential, and you just lock down the rest of his team, you know that it's a carry that can't really participate in fights. Like, whereas the Razor and the Tiny are coming to fights almost nonstop, and they can actually provide help.
Look at that. Yao even mans up underneath the Tier 2 tower to make sure that compLexity can't get the deny on the Tier 2. That's how confident they feel. Ziz is going to be spotted out. Maybe actually jumps directly on top of the Clinks, pops the dust. And another Beyond Godlike spree maybe is not stopping. Beyond Godlike for him. 2-0-4 on the Razor. 0-0-4. I mean, all of these guys are just massively farmed.
Yeah, there's a fully completed Ghost Scepter on Shao 8. And I'm just... Maybe is so scary right now to every single player on the map. Like, there's nobody that he can't really one-shot at this point. Did you see how early Z-Freak had to cast his Grave?
Yeah.
Like, as soon as he sees him at full HP, he's like, well, if I don't do this, I die. So I've got to. It's not even a bad play in hindsight. But this is the one thing that they have going for them is they've built up a pretty big stack for Moon Meander. So if you could pick up something like a Blink Dagger and get a decent Ravage initiation off, I could still see them potentially picking up a fight. It is a strong combination. The problem is, like, you don't have a mech, and the burst heal potential from LGD is still really high. But I feel like you almost have to go with the Blink Dagger. Like, I think the mech at this point is kind of pointless.
Blink Dagger for the Tusk now. Swindlemelon still operating on just boots and a bracer. I'm not sure if I want to take a peek at that net worth chart, but it's something to talk about. 15,000 gold lead for LGD. You know those little markers on the net worth chart that go to show, you know, significant events back and forth? There's only been 2 for the side of compLexity, one of which was MMI dying to neutrals, and the other one was a tower.
Yeah, not a whole lot has been going right for compLexity right now. Even though the score reads 19-1, it is technically 19-0 because suicides to neutrals do count as a kill for the Radiant. But right now, they are starting to mount a push, and I think this is the right idea right now for compLexity because against a tiny IO, even with the Clinks, they're just carrying around dust. They're picking them off. It's better to go for the 5-man. They've got that Blink Dagger like I talked about on Moon Meander, so this could be the fight where they turn things around.
Yeah, but he had an Invis rune, and if they get a really good Ice Blast, it may not matter. In fact, they're going to go for Z-Freak in the background, trying to get the double snowball, manages to stun up Z-Freak, but he didn't get hit by the Ice Blast, so he won't immediately shatter. In fact, he's able to Shallow Grave and get back to the base, but yeah, our Earthshaker is not quite so lucky. He's going to be going down. Moon Meander as well as Ziz are going to be running through the jungle to safety. Maybe going to be able to get the kill on Zhao 8. This could be their very... Oh my god, they actually ravaged for it.
Yeah,
That's heavy commitment, but maybe that's just what they have to do in order to get themselves on the scoreboard.
A kill is a kill at this point for them. Like, it doesn't really matter what you have to commit. Like, getting the first kill on the board, you don't really care what it takes at that point, and you want to at least make it somewhat close, and to give yourself options to get back, I mean, you have to go for kills like that. It's not an ideal situation, but still, it's a kill nonetheless, and so they should be somewhat satisfied that they're now on the scoreboard. But the problem right now is that LGD's farm progression is just going to get better. Like, instead of building for pure mid-game, they're still going almost entirely late game, and you've got a Midas on the Razor and a good Dire Courier pickup by Ziz.
Yeah, he snatches that one out, and is going to be spending a lot of time in the enemy jungle, as per the usual for Clinks, but LGD... I mean, they know that they can't really stop the Clinks from farming up too much. They can go on scouting expeditions and maybe catch them out every once in a while, but it's just not worth the effort. Much better to spend your time actually taking objectives, which is exactly what they're doing for this middle tier 2. Now the relocate up to the top lane. They're going to go for Swindamounds. Fly is sitting on the side, though, ready to go with the Fisher. Swindamounds has already been hit by the combination and is going to be brought down with a couple more right clicks. Ziz comes in, trying to threaten MMY, brings him quite low, needs another shot. MMY comes back for the relocate out. He gets it! Is able to get away. Yao in the meantime. Oh my goodness, they even got the dazzle. This is just disastrous for compLexity.
Yeah, this is an absolute shellacking.
The only kill they got was a solo Ravage on an Ancient Apparition.
You know, but if they hadn't done that, I actually think he would have survived.
Or at the very least, he would have survived long enough for his team to actually come in and probably kill the 2 heroes that kill Ancient Apparitions. So
that was just one of those situations where if you don't do it, you know,
it's going to go bad.
It's so demoralizing at that point. Like, if you can't even kill an AA, you're not going to feel good about that. Like, you have to minimum get that. So I don't think they feel too bad about that situation. I mean, obviously it's not ideal, but a kill's a kill. And there hasn't been any other Ravage opportunities to Moon Meander's credit. And it's going to come back in 10 seconds. But this next Ravage has to do work, Cap. Like, they actually have to get bare minimum 2 kills with no losses. Like, a trade is usually good when you're behind, but not when you're this far behind. You have to get something out of this.
compLexity go for the Roshan pit. That's not there. They do manage to get the jump here onto Yao, so they'll chain stun him down. The relocate, they're actually still going to fight this one with 2 Ice Blasts on the side. Fly actually tries to lock down the heroes with an Echo Slam, immediately going for MMY, who will end up dying, and now maybe is very quickly running himself away, actually turns around to go back for Moon Meander and brings him low enough that perhaps Sylar is the one to be able to get the kill. Sylar just mans up against Swindamounds, already taking away his damage. Ziz doesn't have the attack speed to threaten Sylar, so he's immediately cleaned up by the Tiny as well. Zhao 8 now pushing forward as a support. Doesn't really care. Maybe a living missile for the Tiny. No, he blinks forward in order to toss the Dragonite bat. Gets that kill. Now going for Z-Freak as well. Maybe he's got another toss-up in 2 seconds. Can he actually stop this TP away? He does indeed. He's still got a stun as well. He can blink forward and try and go for Fly in order to wipe compLexity. As the Ice Blast comes in, Fly is able to dodge it, but a toss in, Fly right in front of the fountain, and he's being threatened by LGD under the 20-minute marker. Now here comes the TPs forward. Swindamounds trying to get in range of a stun, but LGD are actually going to leave the base completely unharmed.
They just did a nice little excursion in and out, and Swindle even being forced to buy back with what little meager gold he had to begin with. And so, I mean, things are just not going their way. And it's been 20 minutes, and already I mean, it has to be around 15, 20K. Yeah, in terms of net worth, it's 15 to 20K. And LGD haven't even really gone for a Roshan or anything of that sort. Like, it doesn't even feel like they're interested in ending the game so much as it is they just want to show complexity. Like, look, this is what we can do. Like,
stat
this is how, yeah, this is how
a
good
little
we
bit
are.
of stat batting, you know. All right, it's Roshan time now. They picked up a double damage right in front of the pit, so it's, I mean, if you need any more incentive to take Roshan, I'm not sure what I can give you. So, Assault Chaos is going to be coming in soon for maybe. He will be picking up the Aegis, I believe.
Yeah.
And, I mean, really, they could probably get into, like, MMY just because I think he's the only hero that's likely to die in the next 5 minutes. But who knows? compLexity still have all that team fight potential, even if they don't have the items for it.
Yeah, I mean, they still have Ravage. They have ways to do stuff, but I mean, I'm trying to remain optimistic for them, but at the same time, the farm differential is just so huge right now.
Yeah.
Like, if it was 1 or 2 heroes that LGD had that was incredibly farmed, I would say this is somewhat doable, but it's the fact that the Tiny and the Razor are both just overwhelmingly farmed. Both of them have an Aghanim Scepter. They've got a mech. The high ground potential is there. MMY even picks up a Ghost Scepter for himself so that he can't really die anymore. And so now it's just too many different ways that LGD can throw at them.
Forward to 27. And our 21-minute marker here for this game 2 between compLexity and LGD. LGD currently running the gauntlet of the group stage, sitting at a very pretty 3-0, beating Cloud9 earlier in a 2-0. 2 very close games, but coming out on top anyway. And game 1, quite one-sided for LGD. Perhaps game 2 is going to be just as one-sided as they're now taking this tier 3 tower, now going for the melee racks at bottom lane. And no fight from compLexity just yet. They take the tier 2 tower in top lane. The Klings does have that Desolator, so he can actually threaten buildings. Actually, Moonmeander comes forward for Staffs as well as Blink. Gets a decent Ravage, but there's just no follow-up whatsoever to it. Sylar as well as maybe are now back up to full HP immediately, and compLexity now have no more offense left. In fact, they're going to lose their most offensive hero, Z-Freak, who gets hit by the Ice Blast, is just left to die.
Yeah, and with the racks taken and the Tidehunter Ravage used, I think the plan is just to go for, to continue to push down, because there's nothing really holding them back anymore. They know the Ravage is down. I mean, at this point, I think LGD pretty much feels comfortable in doing whatever they want. They can smell blood right now. This is their 4-0 game. And, I mean, I'm really not too surprised considering how well they've played this game.
Moonmeander. Oh my goodness, he couldn't even get up the cliff in time. He had that Force Staff ready to go the whole time, but he needed to make a better escape than just distance. And that didn't even come in time, Sylar. Ags, Phase Boots, hand a Midas and a Mech, and they are doing exactly what Blitz was talking about. They know Ravage is down, so they might as well push uphill. They've got both a Tiny with an Ags as well as a Razor. These two heroes are incredible power pushers.
Yeah, and with this tower being taken down, they do go for the attempted deny, and compLexity not interested in letting them just win the game. Doing whatever they can to hold off. The Klinks is continuing to just try to farm up whatever items he can, but he doesn't have a TP back to the base, unfortunately, and I think there is still a gem on LGD. No, there actually isn't. So maybe he can just pick off one of the heroes really quickly. I think that's the best possible option for him right now.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to try and go for MMY, but MMY does have the Ghost Scepter, so there's a response from him. And now the Klinks is immediately going to be targeted by both Yao as well as the Ice Blast out from the Ancient Apparition. Ziz does get some distance, but a toss forward, and Yao will be able to snowball him as well. Ziz locked in the corner. Maybe he's going to be able to finish him off with a couple of stuns, and now maybe moves on to the next target. Swindamelons takes a couple of swipes there. Moonmeander moves forward. Between the double damage reduction of both the Breathe Fire as well as the Smash, Tiny's not doing too much. Fly barely able to stay ahead of Sylar there as our Dragon Knight does a nice little loop-de-loop in the middle of the air, but maybe going down as the Ice Shards are going to block out his exit to the fountain. He will fall, and so too does Moonmeander. Sylar, last couple right clicks. Oh no, the Fisher comes in. Finally, the Plasma Field to finish him off. 3 heroes go down right in front of the fountain, and LGD back up after taking a second lane of racks. Yeah,
they're just looking so dominant while doing so. Maybe just continues to pretty much go in wherever he wants, picking up kills left and right. And 33-4, that was a pretty long fight. Like, he was retired because they keep respawning in time to continue to fight. But LGD is so dominant. They don't even care about objectives. Half the time they're just running into compLexity's fountain to mop up kills right now. And with Mega Creeps at 25 minutes. I mean, we've seen some sick comebacks today and even in the wildcard game yesterday, but 25K lead at this point in the game might be too much. Well, it's...
Yeah,
right.
Mega Creeps. There's no optimistic way to play this one. It is impossible for compLexity to win unless there's some sort of freak lightning storm that somehow kills LGD all in real life, and that doesn't seem to be happening. So
actually, that's not even.
Don't doubt compLexity's comeback. Is that what you're saying?
No.
Oh, what an Echo Slam! Yeah,
and actually, no.
That was okay. All right, Fly's gonna at least get something out of this one. They pick up 1 kill. That's the Tusk.
There's a rapier on their Wisp. He
What?
sold everything to buy a rapier.
Oh, look at that. MMY. He's thinking of the viewers, man. He's thinking of the viewers. People are going to get those extra items for the Divine Rapier buy. So LGD will now finish out this game with the tiny clubbing away at the Tier 4s and eventually the throne.
MMY is just planting random wards on the ground now, too. They recognized that this game was over a while ago. There's just so much pressure on the map at once by LGD. And I mean, if you're compLexity, you're going to be a little disappointed especially with how this game went.
Yeah. compLexity, though, to end on perhaps a lighter note, they did, what did they do in their game versus MDP? Did they go 1-1 or 2-0?
They're 2-0, so they're still 2-2. So
yeah, they still have a perfectly fine standing in the group stage. Just obviously being trounced by LGD doesn't feel great. But if they're able to shake this off and move forward, perhaps against some of the weaker teams, they could still have a very nice placing in the group stage. But LGD still looking as dominant as always. 4-0 for them so far in the groups.
Yeah, they're doing just such a good job of keeping up. And the games that we just watched did not... It just looked like they were on a different level completely.
Yeah.
No disrespect to compLexity, but it just felt like LGD was just toying around half the game. And I think that's more just how good LGD is right now.
Yes, absolutely. So we close out this series now. Blitz and I are going to be taking a break. When we come back, well, Blitz and I will be coming back on stream number 1 for the 4th and 5th series of the day. But our next series on this stream will be Newbie versus VP. I'm actually not sure who the casters are who are going to be joining us. I believe it's Coddle and Purge. Actually, Coddle Guy and Purge are going to be joining you guys. So please be sure to stick around and catch some of their casting. It's going to be awesome.
Peace.